Thank you, Eric, Bonnie, Jerry, Mel. So good to have you all back. And have you guys noticed that Bonnie is stretching? She's out on platform leading us in song. Yay, I love that, Bonnie. Thank you for that. So welcome, everybody, and happy Mother's Day to all of you mothers out there. So good to be here with you today as we continue our series, which is Daring to Dance Again. And today we're moving to the idea of guide my steps. So I was thinking about that this week, and I was thinking back to a time where I was at a dance somewhere, and I noticed that there was a couple that was dancing, and their steps were so perfect. They knew just what to do, and he'd spin her around, and they'd come back together, and they'd move apart, and it was so beautifully orchestrated and choreographed. It was clear that they had likely had some dance lessons, and they knew what they were doing. And I found it, very moving. And then I noticed, maybe 2 or 3 songs later, that they were still doing those same steps, but the song had changed. And I started to think about that this week, in that idea of guide my steps. How in this example they showed up in this perfect way that really caught my attention because I could see how beautifully they were dancing with one another, and yet realizing that they were doing the same thing no matter what the dance was. They were showing up in the same moves no matter what the dance was. And I was contrasting that in my mind to a story that I told out at our dance party last week, to a time when I was in high school, and I was a senior. And my boyfriend at the time, his name was Dan, he and I would go to the dance on Friday night, and we would go crazy, because I loved to dance. I still do. And so I would just be dancing out there crazy with him, and the next morning I'd go to work, and one of the guys that I worked with had been at that dance, and he said to me, "Oh my gosh, you and Dan must have been totally blitzed last night." And I hadn't had a drop of alcohol to drink. So I was contrasting those two sides, right? Like guide my steps. And how many times in my life that I show up in this place of perfection to the outer world, right? I've got my I'm good self on. Maybe that smile on my face, everything's good. And it doesn't matter what the song of my life is in any particular time, I'm just showing up in that place of, no, I'm good. I'm good. It reminded me as well, back years and years ago, I worked at J.C. Penney's in their shoe department. And my supervisor at the time, I would ask him, as we do with one another, right? So how are you? And the typical response to that is, I'm fine. Right? There's that again. This is the way I'm dancing through that. I'm fine. But his response was, I'm excellent. I thought, wow, good for him. And then not long after, finding out that he and his wife were in the process of a messy divorce. And I thought, was he really excellent? Or is that the way that he was taught he needed to show up in any given moment? In that place of, no, all is fine, and I know the steps, and I know just what to do, to dare to dance in this time that's so hard. And then again, coming back to myself, just giving myself over to that dance in whatever way it is. Guide my steps. And I bring this up because the thing is, what we're talking about is daring to dance again no matter what is occurring. We've got the umbrellas behind me. And those were set up as our reminder that we have lots of things, tools, ideas, teachings that protect us from whatever is happening around us so that we can truly dance to whatever is happening in our life. But not at the expense of ignoring what is happening in our life if it's challenging. As an example, last week people were asking, next week is Mother's Day. We should have a full house on Mother's Day, right? And I said, well, we'll see. Because Mother's Day traditionally here at Unity Spiritual Center has been a very light Sunday. And that may be because people are taking their mothers out to brunch and those sorts of things. But it may also be that there are people within our community for which Mother's Day is a challenge. It's difficult. Maybe they didn't have the best relationship with their mother, or maybe they've lost a child, and so Mother's Day is challenging for them. Whatever the case may be, but they feel like they can't walk through those doors on Mother's Day because they'd have to put on that dance of everything is okay, and they just can't do it. And so in this idea of daring to dance again, what I want us to all get is that we can dance with one another, show up with one another, no matter what is occurring within our lives and within the world, and stand in our truth together, but allow ourselves to experience and feel whatever it is. To allow that Spirit of God within us to be our guide. Not something out here that says you must show up in this way. Here's your guidance, Sherry. You've got to come through the doors on Sunday and show up in church so that you know that your soul is saved, for example. You know, Unity doesn't teach that. We don't give this simple template. Here you go, Linda. Just follow that. You'll be good. Nothing challenging will ever happen again. That's just not my experience, friends. And so what I want to invite us to remember is that we always have the guidance within us, that guide to guide our dance steps in truth, in authenticity, in vulnerability, no matter what is occurring in our lives, and to show up with one another in that way. I wanted to share with you this morning, as I have been through this series, a scripture. Now, this one is coming from the book of Psalms. And you're going to recognize, I'm not going to read the whole entire thing because it's a long one. This is coming from the 22nd chapter of Psalms. And you'll recognize the first line because the first line says, my God, why have you forsaken me? So Jesus, when we hear Jesus up on the cross and he says those words, he's reflecting, you can hear, on this psalm. And in that moment, that feeling of, I'm alone and God has left me. Anybody ever feel like that today? Right? And so, so sometimes I feel this way. The psalmist felt that way in this moment. This is a psalm of lamentation, and I've shared with you before that many of the psalms start out in this place of lamentation. Guess what? Accepting, here's the challenge in my life right now. Here's what I'm feeling in this moment. I'm not going to put on a happy face. I'm not going to pretend everything is okay. I'm going to be real, and I'm going to be honest, because that's where we need to start. So, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? This is sometimes what we experience in life. When we're called to dare to dance even in the midst of that, but before we can do so, we have to acknowledge what we're feeling. The psalmist goes on to say, but I'm a worm, not a man. Anybody ever feel in that small place? I'm scorned by everyone, despised by people. All who see me mock me. Now, this guy's not having a good day. Or a good year. We can all relate, right? We have these moments together. And he goes on. You know, you brought me out of the womb. You made me trust in you. Even at my mother's breast, from birth I was cast on you. From my mother's womb, you have been my God. So there's the reminder. So here's the way I'm feeling. But I'm coming back to the remembering of what I've known. You are here with me. You have been my God. Oh, he goes on in this, there's so much imagery here. Roaring lions that tear their prey, open their mouths wide against me. Anybody have any roaring tigers or lions in your life this week? I poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. Anybody? Bones out of joint this week? They divide my clothes among them and cast lots for my garment. There again, you hear from that story of Good Friday, from that scripture. But eventually, with this psalm and with all psalms, what happens is we start in this place of lamentation. We start in this place of truth. God, my life sucks right now. I'm not going to put on a happy face. I'm not going to dance those steps that I think I need to dance no matter what is happening in my life. I'm going to allow myself to feel what I feel here in this moment. And here it is. It's hard and it's challenging and I'm frustrated and I'm angry and I'm all of those things. But then we don't stay there. Then we allow that Spirit of God within us to guide us. Then we come back to the truth. Not because we think we need to show up in a certain way. Not because, well, I've got to put on my happy face now because I've got to go to church and do a Sunday message. Not because of that. Not because I don't want people to be uncomfortable around me because I'm not feeling quite right today. Not because of that. Not because I think that my life has to be perfect so that other people only see the perfection, not because of that, but because I, in my life, and I know you in your life, want to experience that presence of God within no matter what. And for that, we don't stay stuck in whatever it is that we're feeling. Do you see the difference? Okay. So the psalmist comes around to, from you comes my praise in the great congregation. My vows I will pay before those who fear God. The poor shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek the Holy One shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord, for dominion belongs to the one who rules over the nations. Dominion belongs to that Spirit of God and that Spirit of Christ that is within us. And when we can remember that and allow ourselves to center in that place, wisdom is ours to guide our steps. And now we can ask, how do I want to show up in this moment? In this place of sadness, can I remember that in spite of the fact that I may not feel it here, I am one with God? And can I sit here in this moment, in this sadness, and breathe here, reminding myself of that until once more I feel some sense of connection to God again? And if I can't feel it, because sometimes I can't feel it, can I have the courage to walk through the doors of my spiritual community, to join with others who will see the truth of me, so that when I've forgotten it and can't show up in the way that I think I want to, that they will see me for who I am and uplift me and inspire me and encourage me? And again, not because we think our lives have to show up in this perfect way, but because you and I are here to be that light of God. And as that divine light of God, our intention must be to be aware of the power and presence of God in our lives. Not so that we can show up in some preconceived way, dancing the correct dance steps. There is no formula. There is no clear-cut plan. I think that's what we sang about, right? We just take each day and do the best we can. That's what the song reminded us of. Not because we're trying to show up and have a perfect life, because we're trying to show up and perfectly express our divine self. So unity teaches that each and every one of us has this power of wisdom within us that is there designed to guide my steps and to guide your steps. So that at any given moment, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what you are going through, when I can be still and know and listen and access that wisdom, I will discover what is the next right thought for me to hold. What is the next right word for me to speak? What is the next right action for me to take from that place of wisdom? Charles Fillmore tells us in Keep a True Lent, there are two ways to get understanding. One is to follow the guidance of spirit that dwells within. The second is to go blindly ahead and learn by hard experience. Those two ways are open to everyone. Can you know in any given moment that whatever you're going through is a perfect opportunity? A perfect opportunity to know God here and now, to dance the dance of life, and to let God be that inspiration behind your dance. To give yourself fully over to it. There's a saying that goes something like this: the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Think about that for a minute. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. So I think about dancing. You know, there are some who have been hesitant, like, I'm not really comfortable dancing in front of everybody. I'm not very good at it. There are others like me that just give ourselves over with abandon and don't worry too much about what people are thinking. I didn't ask Kimberly if I could share this, but I don't think she'd mind. Kimberly Buhner is our YOU sponsor. And so she's been to lots of YOU events. And she has spoken to us about this idea that, at YOU events, they dance. And there she is with all of these young kids, teenagers dancing. And she doesn't want to look the fool. And so Kimberly says what she does is close her eyes. Now I don't see anybody. And then she can give herself over to the dance. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. What comes up in your mind? If I said to you right now, we're going to turn up the lights, we're going to turn up the party music, and everybody's going to get up and dance. We've done that before. And many, many of you join in, and some of you don't. And it's okay, whatever way you show up. But I would just invite you to the question, if I'm holding back from participating in this in my life, what else might I be holding back from? Because I'm afraid of the way I might be judged. I'm afraid I might look a little silly. I'm afraid I'm not going to do it right. I'm afraid I don't have the perfect steps or the perfect words. How you do anything is the way that you show up for everything. And so you can learn a lot about yourself by paying attention to the way you show up for things. And it doesn't matter, according to Charles Fillmore. You can get it by just showing up and doing life however you want, or you can get it by getting still and listening to that wisdom within and allowing that wisdom to guide you. You can dance the dance no matter which way you choose to do it. But the dance that will fill you with a sense of purpose, with a sense of connection, with a sense of passion, with a sense of compassion and love, is the dance where you allow yourself to be guided and inspired by that wisdom of God that is within you. Charles tells us in 12 Powers, practice the presence of God until you open your consciousness to the inflow of the omnipresent, all-knowing mind, and then affirm your unity with that mind until you know and fully realize through the many avenues of wisdom just what you should do. Not what your mom told you to do. Not what your kids are telling you to do. Not what your spouse is telling you to do or your friend is telling you to do. Be still, long enough to hear, what is God inspiring me to do? Allow that Spirit of God to be your guide. What do you think is going to come up? What feeling do you think is going to come up in you as you do that, as you allow that Spirit of God to be your guide rather than what you're used to out in the world being your guide? What do you think is going to come up for you for that? Amazing, Marilyn. Joy, peace, miracles, wonders, abundance, zeal. All right. Anybody going to feel uncomfortable? Because it's important to understand that yes, when we live in this way, we will experience all of those amazing things, but it will require us to dare to dance through the uncomfortable first, because God is going to stretch you in ways that you never imagined. And I don't know about the rest of you, but that makes me uncomfortable. And if that makes you uncomfortable, just know this, it's okay. Don't let the discomfort stop you. So I've been sharing each week an individual in life that represents what these ideas that we're talking about are about. And so today I want to introduce somebody whose name is Marian Anderson. Anybody ever hear that name before? Marian Anderson. I see some noddings of the head. Marian Anderson grew up with a single mother. Her father had passed away. A little black girl in the South. At 6 years old, she began to sing in her Baptist church. And she had a beautiful voice. But her family certainly could not afford to pay for little Marian to get singing lessons and all of those things so that she could go and develop that voice. But Marian had a vision that she would be singing. And she would be singing before crowds. Didn't know how it was going to happen. But in her little mind, remember when you were little and everything still seemed possible? Right? Come as a child, bring yourself back to that. And so what happened was, as Marian grew within this Baptist church, the church themselves took up a collection for her. And they paid for her to have a year of singing lessons. I was going to forget the name of this guy, so because I am not a big classical singer, it's not there in my understanding. So, anybody know Giuseppe Bogetti? Okay, so he must be somebody big. Somebody here knows him, right? Because I didn't. But he heard her and loved her voice so much that he gave her a year then of free singing lessons. And as a young adult, Marian ended up going over around the world. Europe, she did a tour in Europe. She did a tour in South America. Very well received everywhere. She grew not only, in her own capacity to sing, but her audiences grew with her. And so when she came back into the United States, and I'm trying to think, I think this was around 1938 or 39. They just had the 75th anniversary of this. Well, probably a few years ago now. But her agent did his best to rent out Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. because her audience would be so large, they knew they needed a big venue. The Daughters of the American Revolution turned her down because it was their policy that in order to sing in Constitution Hall, you had to be white. Now, Marian, she could have said, okay, I guess it's not going to happen. But she didn't. Her agent didn't. What they decided was, we are going to rent out the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And on Easter Sunday, Marian is going to sing on those steps. And Marian drew in a crowd of 75,000 people to those steps. She had never sung in front of such a large crowd before. Can you imagine what she must have been feeling like? She herself was not an activist. All that Marian did was find her own gift within and share it with the world. And in finding her gift and sharing it with the world and being willing to be uncomfortable and listening to that guidance that was coming to her of how to dance, she found herself in front of a congregation of 75,000 people this Easter morning. She started out with "My country, 'tis of thee." And there's a line in there, "Of thee I sing." And she changed it in that concert to "Of thee we sing." And later, when she was asked about it, she said, "I did that because of the importance of community. That together we can overcome whatever the challenges are. If we go through those challenges united, together, not separate." Daring to dance and letting God be your guide, that inner wisdom be your guide, will, like Marian, take you to places that you never imagined you would be. It will lead you through emotions that will make you feel uncomfortable. It is not a guarantee that your life will now be a life of ease and grace, because life is life. But you will know within that dance that you have everything you need within you to overcome whatever the situation may be. If you just keep showing up in your yes, in your authenticity, in your vulnerability, in your courage, in your strength, in that wisdom guiding your way. Who's with me? Yeah? All right. So let's see what our practice is today. What transformation is possible if you abide in God and find your groove? By the way, I like the little rap in there. That was a good groove. This week, practice knowing that there is an absolute spirit of wisdom within you that supports you in discerning the way. Remember that Psalm of Lamentation. It started out lost and confused and hurt, and the tiger's eating me in the water, making my bones, all of that. But it eventually came around to, "But yes, you were with me since the beginning, God. You strengthen me, you uplift me, you encourage me." Each step is enlightened as you allow that inner wisdom to guide you. As you begin your day, center in that wisdom. Throughout your day, as you go about the activity of the day, invite your inner wisdom to guide your way. Dance with God's wisdom this week and allow your transformation to unfold. Who's dancing? Yeah? All right. One of these Sundays, I'm going to begin again to ask, so who did the practice last week? Who wants to share, right? So that we can inspire one another, so we can encourage one another, so we can dance the dance together. Unfortunately, I'm looking out and it's pouring out. We're not going to have a dance party today out in the parking lot. So see good weather for next week, and we'll begin again next week. And like Marian, I believe in the power of community to support one another in moving through whatever the situation may be. And this community is a strong community. It's a loving and accepting community. It is an inspired community. And we need all of you to participate as community in the changes that are coming in the weeks ahead. That means first and foremost, we've got listening circles coming up. The end of the month, May 30th, Sunday, after service, live here in Unity Hall. Or that Thursday, the 3rd, on the Zoom in a virtual world. But plan to come. Share your voice. Together, we will dance our way through this, letting wisdom of each one of us be our guide. We can't do it alone. We must do it together. Thank you, friends. God bless.